I'm telling you, Liza P, especially now when combined with the recent Overture DLC, is so amazing of an experience for me that it completely changes how I now view Souls and Souls-like games. I now expect more from them, particularly in the story department, but just overall. Thanks to the phenomenal package that Neowiz and Round 8 Studio have put together here with this game, they've spoiled me. Yo, what's good? It's Miss Dora. So I just finished the Lies of P DLC not too long ago, and I'm telling you, it was fantastic. Like, I wasn't sure what to expect, to be honest, but on every front, it delivered, okay? Gameplay and the new build options introduced, incredible. I mean, they added a damn gunblade to the game straight from Final Fantasy VIII. There's a sword that lets you lightning teleport all over the place like you're riding for Mortal Kombat. Oh, and in case a grappling hook or flamethrower were too tame as options for your Legion arm, no worries. Just go ahead and duct tape a shotgun to your arm and call it a day. You won't really want to use anything else after you've gotten that added to the arsenal, I'm sure. The boss fights, like, they just had me speechless, okay? Several of them legit took my breath away. And the story, honestly, the best part about the entire experience for me personally. Haven't finished this DLC though. I had this thought in my head that Lies of P might be my favorite game of all time in this genre. Souls and Souls-like combined into one, with the base game plus DLC being lumped together as one experience. Once that thought crossed my mind, I shook my head instantly. I immediately thought to myself, like, nah, that's just recency bias talking, you know what I'm saying? Like, Bloodborne and Elden Ring, they're still tied for your favorite. So just sit on that thought for a few days and chill out. But after said few days had rolled around, I couldn't help but shake that feeling of, yeah, I think Liza P is my favorite in the genre, like potentially. But still, having not touched Bloodborne for a while or haven't played Elden Ring, I haven't played that game Elden Ring for like almost a year at this point, I want to say. I do feel like I'm not equipped to make that call just yet. But during all of this reflection, one thing was made abundantly clear to me, and it's that Liza P and the Overture DLC have successfully made me expect more from games in the Souls genre. So in a way, and as a result, maybe it is the best to me personally. Now, I'll touch on what it is about this game and more specifically the DLC add-on that has caused this shift for me, but it mostly boils down to the story. Don't get me wrong, the gameplay is incredible. Damn near 10 out of 10 in my opinion, and that was before the DLC, as Liza P very smartly just learned from the games that came before it, but put his own spin on things and or improved upon a lot of those elements gameplay wise. It truly is a combination of what we as Soul fans have played up until this point, but masterfully sewn together with a bit of its own spice added in. It ain't perfect, but it gets so much right that you gotta go looking for the flaws with a magnifying glass. And the last bit I'll mention outside of story for this small discussion video is how the cool factor of this game is just through the roof in terms of what all of your equipment and upgrades allow you to do. It goes to show just how dope of an experience you can make for your players when you make the cool factor one of your priorities during development. Hey, I understand realism. I understand fitting within the constraints and themes of your world, and I also understand that other Souls games have cool factor and styles for days. I'm looking at you, Bloodborne, but for me, Liza P just hit differently in that regard. In a way I haven't felt since Bloodborne and its trick weapons. The devs truly have a philosophy of more in this aspect. The base game already had a cool factor in spades, but for Overture, they were definitely coming up with ideas at the drawing board, like, okay, let's see, what cool stuff from fiction do fans of our game probably like? Stuff from Devil May Cry, you think? Maybe some Final Fantasy? Maybe? Yeah, I don't care. Just throw it all in. That's definitely how they were making this game and the DLC, I'm telling you. But let's move on to talking a bit about the story, how it was handled, to where I now expect more from future games in the Souls genre. No spoilers, of course. This isn't going to be like a story analysis video or anything. Just know from my overall thoughts on the plot, I loved it. The story in Lies of P plus Overture is one of my favorite video game stories of all time. Not the best, but definitely somewhere in my top 10. And I would put my life on the line for Carlo, Romeo, Leia, Eugenie, Alidoro, and especially Rosora and Spring the Cat, aka Bomb Bomb. And definitely, I shed several tears throughout the DLC. Where Lies of P sets itself apart in its story, how it's told when compared to other Souls games, in my opinion, is just the amount of big, impactful plot moments that aren't pushed to the side via notes, side and descriptions, or journal entries. For the base game, of course, but tremendously more so for Overture, there's all sorts of moments with incredible voice acting, effects, and music to go along with it that elicit emotion in a way that written text just plain old falls short of. Essentially, direct storytelling as opposed to the indirect style that we've been getting in this genre up until this point. Books and texts are amazing, but there's a reason that we as a human species have ever sought to evolve our storytelling mediums. We want more out of them. Similarly, the way the story is expressed to the player stems from the wanting more out of our storytelling mediums mindset. Like, it's clear that the team behind Lies of P loves the best of what Souls games have to offer, but at the same time, they were craving one with a compelling narrative at the forefront. So they just went ahead and made it. For this game, you'll be treated to excellently directed and well-voiced cutscenes outside of boss battles, interacting with NPCs and asking them questions from a list of options leads to really interesting exposition about the world and its most important characters. P can perform emotes in front of the several NPCs that are available for you to chat and talk with in order to get reactions out of them that express a little bit of what their character is about. And just like other Souls games, of course, bosses will talk to you mid-fight, sometimes revealing a bit about their story, giving a small window into their tragic origins, for example. This may all seem like simple stuff, but it's been absent from the genre up until now, at least absent in terms of being done with this much quality in its presentation. I'm saying that Lies of P is a step above in this regard, in that quality, the presentation, and how this narrative and everything about it and surrounding it is directly given to you as a player. I'm not saying though that Lies of P or its DLC are perfect in its storytelling. However, you're still gonna have to read a lot of notes if you want to grasp everything about this world. The difference is though that reading item descriptions isn't necessary in terms of understanding the plot overall or several important characters at large. It just gives you some nice extra lore tidbits, essentially. This leads to Lies of P and its DLC pulling me along in a way that Souls games just haven't done so up until now. Like, yes, there's intrigue in Elden Ring, for example. You want to progress in the game in order to learn more about the events that led up to the current state of the lands between. But that intrigue is just so much more palpable in a game like Lies of P based on how the story is told directly. It feels like characters have more to say about the state of things, your journey, and their personal issues. You don't find out about them as a result of item descriptions purely, and for Lies of P, the stuff that comes up in item descriptions is still mentioned even in voice by NPCs directly. Now, Souls games out there also have some great stories, but they were hidden up until now, primarily behind those item descriptions I've been talking about and theories that have to be put together by the community of players. As for games not made by FromSoft, aka the Souls likes, they're a bit better in that regard depending on which one, but up until Lies of P, I feel like as a whole, not by much. And I thought that was enough for me, as I consider myself a massive Souls fan. I've been playing these games for a very long time, but I see now that when a game in this genre has all of the elements that we've come to know and love, you know, elements that when we look at them and when they're done well, we can then point to said games and say, yeah, that's a good Souls or good Souls-like game. And on top of that, when it has all that, it tells an incredible story directly while telling it well with regard to pacing, impact, suspense, structure, intrigue, and more. I see now that I simply don't want to go back. Definitely not after playing Overture. Those elements that contribute to amazing storytelling in Lies of P are cranked all the way up to the max for the DLC. I'm telling you, like, I want future games in this genre to be amazing in the ways that we come to expect. However, I can't help but still crave the excellent, directly told story going forward. It's to the point that if a future Souls or Souls-like game makes me go back to sussing out entire subplots like those we get from subquests, completely from nodes or item descriptions, it's gonna affect my enjoyment of the game. And if it's a game that I'm reviewing, I'm probably going to score lower or less as a result. It's no different from how all the way up until Bloodborne, I couldn't believe this myself when I went back and researched it, all the way up to Bloodborne, you couldn't respect your character stats. I thought that was wrong at first, but I went back and checked. I could still be wrong, but from what I read after I play all these games myself, but yeah, believe that all the way up until Bloodborne, you could not respect your character stats. But in Elden Ring, you could. And now that Elden Ring has it as a feature, you're probably gonna want it as an option in every Souls game from here on out, right? If it isn't there, you know, would it ruin a Souls game for you or for me? Probably not. Like, I can always fall back on what made me fall in love with these games in the first place. But still, that doesn't mean that such features or aspects won't be sorely missed if they aren't present. A game that's similar, in my opinion, to Lies of P in this regard is Code Vein. Now, not for the main story. It was all right. It was pretty good. But the game Code Vein had several side stories that were told via these walking path voice acted segments, and a lot of them hit me in the feels. I'm not gonna lie, they were very, very good. I enjoyed the story overall in Code Vein, even if its other elements aren't as good as my other favorite Souls titles. And I'm just saying, like, the plot experience I got in Lies of P feels like an advancement from that game, from Code Vein, and feels like an advancement from the genre at large in every way possible, even if, again, it ain't perfect. Like, there are certain interactions I felt could have happened in Lies of P but didn't, specifically things regarding, Alidoro and Eugenie. And while the DLC introduced voiced recordings as collectibles, so instead of like picking up a journal or a note left behind a character with some text, there were voice recordings you could pick up. While the DLC does introduce that, and they're present in other Souls likes as well. I think what was it, the mech one, what was it, I forgot what it was, but it was the one where you have like this mech suit on a guy. I'll probably put the title up here. But yeah, while those were introduced in this game, I do feel like there are certain notes or journals that you could find in Lies of P, ones that were text only, that I really wish were those voice recordings instead, such as letters and journals from Antonia and Geppetto, two main characters. Another excellent feature that Lies of P has, though, is its dope use of music, both as a storytelling device and a gameplay mechanic. P will stumble across several music records, right? And these records either tell the story of certain characters or are very relevant to them thematically and their individual side stories. Not only that, but if P listens to these tracks in full, the first time he does, his humanity grows. You see it represented on screen with this musical cue and a graphic that pops up. Like, it grows, going further from puppet towards a real human. This lets the player know that something deep within P, the character you're playing, resonates with these songs, and that as his humanity tunes into the music and allows it to flow through him, so should you take a moment to sit back and just soak it in. You can't fast forward to get the humanity points that these songs give you upon completion. Points that are, by the way, used to unlock certain endings. You gotta slow down and take it in, or walk around the hub as the song is playing, and in doing so, you have conversations with certain characters or notice things you may not have otherwise about the hotel. I'm so glad they decided to implement the mechanic this way, and that level of thought just goes to show how much the story meant to the team behind the game. They wanted you to feel it just as P does. This is especially apparent given that one of the game's main tracks is called Feel. Oh, and I didn't mention it yet, but just overall, the music is incredible. Okay, like not even from a story standpoint or its use as a gameplay mechanic. No, I'm talking about overall, the music is top notch. Not the best soundtrack from a video game of all time, definitely not, but it's for sure one of the better ones. Oh, and for Overture, I won't say they do anything too crazy with the music that the base game doesn't already do. You know, the records you find, again, they're relevant or are meant to portray certain characters thematically or from a story standpoint, but there is a record. There's one like soundtrack, one vinyl that you find at the tail end of the Overture DLC, like at the very end, that is revealed to in-universe have been played by P and a few other characters who I won't spoil. And getting that record in my inventory, realizing the story relevance and impact behind it, and ultimately listening to the song in full in the hotel, just it hit deep. It's a moment in gaming for me that I don't think I'm ever gonna forget. This is all on top of having a lot of the same excellent art direction, enemy design, and environmental storytelling that other great games in the genre have. It lends to great indirect storytelling here, just like it does in the other games of this genre. My point is that Lies of P goes that extra step beyond. It doesn't necessarily abandon mystery or indirect storytelling outright and spoon feed you everything. It definitely doesn't. Instead, it enhances it by giving out those core emotional and plot relevant beats up front, still leaving a bit behind the curtains for those that want to go look for it. I prefer that as opposed to peeling back the curtain being necessary to get any kind of a good story experience at all. To the people that'll say something along the lines of, well, the story isn't primarily what these games are about. They're about fun, grueling combat, amazing bosses, potentially PvP, and coming up with your own build to solve the game's problems. At least when talking about the Souls games, including Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring, I would 100% say you're right. The story of these games up until now has not been the focal point. What I say in response to that is, we are now getting games in this genre that show us we can have both. Getting both, it's possible. It's possible for these titles to be developed containing the same elements that made them special in the first place, while still telling an emotionally resonating story to us, the players, directly. To me, why wouldn't you want both? So yeah, that's gonna do it for this small little discussion. Like I said, y'all, I just wanted to talk a bit about how much this game and its DLC has spoiled me rotten for its story, and how I look forward to future Souls and Souls-like games in the hopes that other titles will follow Lies of P's example, just like Lies of P clearly learned from and paid respect to many of the great games that came before it. However, even if other devs don't follow suit, at the very least, given the post-credits ending scene, to the base game of Lies of P, I definitely think that Neowiz and Round 8 Studios are going to continue to wow us with their take on games within this genre. If you checked out Lies of P and the DLC expansion, be sure to let me know what you thought about it in the comments, what you thought about the game overall as one complete package now. And if you haven't yet checked it out, I'm curious as to what's kept you from giving it a trial this time. Be sure to let me know in the comments. Again, I'm Mr. Aura, and I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. Y'all be easy.